express their will through the ballot box, this is the direction we want our government to go in. Now they're saying we're not going to allow you to let the government function, so unless you give us $1.5 trillion in money for programs that the American people have largely now said they're no longer interested in supporting, to include health care for non-citizens, illegal immigrants, health care expansion programs for other countries in some cases on an export basis, unless you give us $1.5 trillion for that, we're going to keep the government closed. That's not negotiating good faith.
Okay, but, well, it's not for people who are here illegally. It's people who have different legal status, people who are seeking asylum, refugees. Right. We've gone through this with the House Speaker. But I ask on the programs part because...
Yeah, but saying non-citizens is accurate, though. Saying non-citizens is accurate.
You said
illegal.
I think it's important. You said people who are here illegally.
Mm-hmm. Some of those people would be considered here illegally.
But those are different things. I mean, maybe you don't like temporary protected status, but you're an immigrant with legal status.
But how many people? No, we can't just move on. No, you can't just pave over that, because a lot of people come under asylum, claim asylum, which are not actually asylum seekers. That system has been abused by fives of millions, tens of millions, potentially people.
But that's a legal process. You can change the law if you don't like it. But my point is, they're not.
But if they've abused the process and lied about it, that's illegal. If they've falsely claimed asylum status, been given asylum status during an administration that chose to voluntarily.
Okay, you're getting off the topic. My point is, people who are
DACA. I think it's very much the topic.
DACA recipients, temporary protected status, refugees. These are the people who qualify for that. But on the projects, the Department of Energy just canceled $1 billion to the Pacific Northwest Hydrogen Hub. Part of that covers your state of Montana, and your governor actually praised it when it was happening, saying it was going to create good-paying Montana jobs and boost American-made energy. They just yanked $1 billion from that. So is that taking away good-paying jobs in Montana?
Of course it is. As I said, we want the government to be open. You should be saying this to Chuck Schumer, who's closing the government down. I'm agreeing we should have the government open right now. This is an unnecessary shutdown.
But that you're acknowledging that what the Trump administration just pulled in funding is hurting your state.
Having troops not being able to fulfill their functions, having law enforcement officers, having air traffic controllers not be able to direct flights into our airports in Montana hurts our state. Not having federal employees showing up to Farm Service Agency offices during cattle shipping season, that hurts our state. Not having Department of Transportation employees overseeing our highways, our bridges, our airways, our road construction efforts. All those things are hurting every state. So this shutdown is not a good thing, and that's why we don't want it to continue. That's why we voted. That's why we've now voted 8 times to reopen the government, and we've not been supported by our friends across the aisle.
Yeah, we pushed Democrats on their stance. We've had many of your colleagues on the show. But on this hub specifically, I mean, that is the Trump administration didn't have to make that decision. They decided to pull that $1 billion from your state. Do you disagree with that?
Well, I think the reality is we wouldn't be here if the government was still open. And now we're going on week 3 of a pretty unnecessary shutdown.
Well, actually, Chris Wright, the energy secretary, I asked him about that project specifically, and he said they would have done that even if the government wasn't shut down, that was months in the making even before the government shut down.
Well, it's unfortunate we're still shut down. We shouldn't be.
On this issue overall, if you're a senator and a Democrat's president next, and if you voted to approve funding for a program and that president decides they don't like it and they want to pull it, do you agree that they have that authority if you think Trump has that authority right now?
Well, the power of the purse has always lied with Congress. And as I said, the appropriations process, unfortunately, only about 23% of what we spend right now really is discretionary. As you know, the mandatory spending has grown as a portion of our federal budget massively in the last 30 plus years. The reality is we need to get the appropriations process back to where it should be, where the committees of jurisdiction between the House and the Senate negotiate and conference on these priorities, especially when we have a divided government. Right now, we don't, but especially when we have divided government, that negotiation, interconference, and inside the committees is incredibly important. And from my understanding, again, I've only been here a few months, but we've really lost the art of that ability to craft a budget negotiation process that reflects the priorities of every congressional district, every senator for each state that's a priority, and of course the White House and their priorities as the administration. So
do you feel like
we need to get back to that.
Are willing to negotiate when you talk to your colleagues up on the Hill? Have you talked to Democrats who've said?
I think they are. Listen, of course, we all get on the news and we put on our jerseys and we have to do what we have to do. But I think the reality is the vast majority of people on the Hill, on both sides, they do want the government to be open. They do want things to be functioning, and they want to get back to regular order, especially when it comes to the appropriations process. Because especially as lawmakers, when you represent, especially a rural district like mine, I mean, I have 600,000 plus voters, about 1 million residents in Montana. There's certain senators that have 25, 30